Lords of the Fallen is one of the more fun Souls-like games I've tried out, mainly due to having really powerful magic. Inferno is awesome for the large fire hammer slam. Radiance is amazing for buffs and lasers. Umbral straight up explodes anything and everything with huge AoEs. But one thing I had yet to try out was the Crossbow. People had said it's pretty good, which is honestly an understatement. The Crossbow is beyond broken, with explosive bolts that clear this game easy. So, let's give it a shot. This is how me and my brother beat Lords of the Fallen's Inferno ending. Partisan was my starting class, so I could use flails as a backup to the crossbow. One major reason I didn't 100% the Steam achievements were because all these modifiers require several runs, and I'm not a huge fan of having no checkpoints, which is one of them. The main purpose of this playthrough was to check out co-op again. Apparently the devs modified things a bit to be more seamless. Well, at the time, this wasn't working so well, so we still were forced to play the game over twice, which they since have fixed, I've heard. But most important items can be picked up by second player now, which thank goodness they changed that. After the tutorial, we joined up and took on the first boss. This one isn't very complex, as you can see. Auto doesn't fight back much, not to mention co-op is a tad easy if you ask me, but in theory having someone in front will make a crossbow far easier to use. You can see how many bolts I have at any given time under the stamina bar in the top left. Yellow is how many bolts each shot uses. Leveling health and stamina increases this amount, so we'll be throwing anything and everything into those two stats. Right after our glorious victory, the Light Reaper shows up and tears us apart. He's an amazing boss in terms of moveset, but not really something you're meant to beat at this time. Collecting our first Umbral Eye and shooting down the better stamina regen ring brings us to Pieta, the real first boss. As far as parrying goes, she's so unbelievably easy. You get in close, block her laser sword swings at the right time, and knock her down fast. Flails aren't anything spectacular, in fact, they're very basic and uninteresting. Each is fast enough though, and with some fire found outside the arena, damage isn't gonna be a problem. Unironically, one of the best boss fights in this game. Her music is glorious. The attacks are simple, yet enjoyable to avoid. A little hard to hit her at times if she's on player 2, but that's why we have the old crossbow after all. Easy first boss, you'll love to see it. Scourged Sister is pretty important to me as she has another flail we could potentially use. Weirdly enough, you can ignore her mechanic by waiting in the back as she lore walks. You're supposed to use the lantern to destroy an eyeball that shields her, but that's a tad unnecessary if she goes out of range for the thing. Any of these smaller bosses can be soul flayed, which pulls out their soul, freezing them for several seconds. You deal wither damage, which is the white on her health bar, before she returns to normal and all that health disappears on the next hit. Blocking is also a major advantage in this game as it doesn't deal chip damage per se. Instead, your health will turn white and it can be regained from attacks. Actually lets you block almost anything if you're aggressive enough. Yes, we aren't using crossbows much at the moment, though they're fantastic as a finisher, I'll have to say that much. Defaced Ring for increased HP and our first amulet for a major increased HP are excellent pickups. Freeing the blacksmith is important as we can upgrade our new flail from the previous boss, which deals bleed damage. A nice burst that can build up with successive hits. Mistress of Hounds can be found not further down, although she didn't stand much of a chance. My brother got her attention while I dealt with the two pesky dogs. By that point, she was already around half health. Add in a few bolts to keep her staggering, and my brother gets a juicy critical, sending her off into oblivion. Too bad you can't deal damage while riposts are occurring. That would probably be way too cheesy come to think of it, but still. Falling through a few unstable boards, we meet the Congregator of Flesh, one disgusting mass of bodies who throws himself at you. It's important to use your lantern on another eyeball or else he doesn't take too much damage. Blocking once again trivializes everything as there's no need to risk dodging. Hold up a shield and swing wildly after. Talk about a cinematic experience. Dash backwards as immense shockwaves from roars scream out around you. Plink out a few bolts and then get smashed over the head a few times. Why the heck was he even on me, man? Yeah, maybe because I was keeping out of his poison. Well, that is what they give us healing items for, if that wasn't obvious enough. After trudging through the swamp, we were finally able to make our way to the giant face boss. He's a large face with legs and hands, so what else am I supposed to call him? That door didn't quite open as soon as I expected it to, leading to a few face plants. Quickly dealing with the ranged enemies let me return and stunlock this monstrosity. Those blue charges under my ammunition tell you how many lantern uses I have. The eye we found earlier gave us +1 charge. This is pretty powerful for these particular face amalgamations as they get reposted after each pull hole. One to rip open the shell, and another to make him vulnerable. You can absorb some glowing pustules on the walls to gain back charges. Much less necessary in co-op since you already get double charges. And yeah, that was far easier than we had expected. Might be leveling up correctly from the looks of it. Which leads us to Hushed Saint, probably my favorite boss design in Lords of the Fallen, even though it's pretty early on. He rides around on a horse, attacking here and there. Eventually, he jumps off throwing his weapon and landing to take you on mano-a-mano. Well, that didn't work out for him, since we are both using fast weapons. By the way, how cool do weapons look with fire infused on them? Gotta love the little things. Exploding more eyeballs placed around the arena can hit the horse, sending his owner flying down. Unfortunately, while it seems range damage is relatively safe this early on, it doesn't do a whole lot of damage. They give you more than enough pouches, which are consumables used to refill ammo. Even still, it's not exactly winning me over. Oh, also you can't block the horse. Learned that the hard way. There's plenty of chances to miss as this more humanoid figure turns on each attack. Can't say we have the full build together yet, but at least we can use the weapon more often now. Nothing much in between us and Crimson Percival. One of the more common themes you'll notice is that all main bosses who have more valuable rewards are major objectives, while these smaller side bosses act as previews of a sort. Each is some enemy you're going to face during basic encounters later on in your adventure, though they're never really near as difficult as the boss versions. Ever wanted to play an FPS Souls-like? Well, here's your chance. All I need to do is sit in the back with my bolts flying on repeat. No danger, no tricky moves to avoid. Just me in the wind, whistling away. More blue eyes can be exploded to stun the swordsman, making him unable to defend himself. I'm already wishing this thing would reload twice as fast as it does, but that might be asking for too much again. Or is it? He foreshadows to the audience. With my crossbow now at +4, there's the ever so important cracked rune tablet to acquire. This does not get shared in co-op unless you do the actual seamless experience, and that recently got patched to work much better. Why make the most important item in the game not available for player 2? Very bizarre decision. Don't worry, we went and got it for my brother's world as well. I wouldn't hold him up that much. Ruiner is one of the major Rogar or fire demons that we will encounter. Ah yes, the good old shield. Every ranged player's greatest opponent. Looking back on this footage, I have to say my brother probably didn't know what he was getting into. Watching him dodge and weave, focus up, and actually put in effort, as I do literally nothing to put myself in harm's way. Really, this is on him for expecting anything better of me. Weighted bolts can be collected underneath some boxes. They cost 3 ammo per bolt, but do deal more damage. Climbing up the ruined tower is extremely important as Fitzroy's armor set can be found in a locked chest at the top. Our second encounter with the Light Reaper could now commence. This boss is a major encounter as he essentially chases you throughout the game. You fight him early on, right here, somewhere in the ice region, and again in Bramis Castle. Each time you're meant to lose until the last fight, showing just how strong and formidable this tyrant really is. Except you can win if you manage to perform well enough. Doing so grants tons of levels much earlier on, as again, you're not supposed to beat him here. But me and my brother had a plan. My weapon already deals bleed, so why not throw on more bleed salts to make sure that burst happens even faster. All the while, my brother could build up poison with poison salts. This turns our non-existent damage into more than respectable amounts if we are aggressive. Now, you can't block any of the fire attacks as far as I can tell, but all of his melee is easy to avoid with a shield. I really love this bleed effect infusion adds to the flail as it feels way more accurate to the weapon type. In addition to having several healing items per rest, the main player also gets a free revive. After being defeated, you come back in the Umbral state one time. This sets you in the more undead world where if you then die again, it's a full defeat. Player 2 can be revived after any of their deaths if you have healing items available, but they don't get that free revive. Not that we really needed this, as we were clearly locked in. One of the best fights Lords of the Fallen throws at you. With a formidable boss using flashy jumps and fire blasts, you'll feel absolute terror. Fighting him so early on is way more fun as the stakes are high and you don't get a second chance here. Fail this attempt and he flies away to his other locations. Too bad we forgot that he explodes after death, covering all ground in a fire wave. We'll barely live through it, I guess. Infernal Enchantress blocks our way into the fiery ruins. She is immune to damage as several eyes protect her. Take each of these out to bring down her shield and there isn't much to say after that. She's a fire mage, so fireballs, explosions, and hot breath is something you'll need to contend with. Of course, I will not be dealing with any of that anyway, since that's my brother's job, of course. It isn't quite time for me to have a new crossbow, but soon all will be revealed. Still not soon enough for my taste, but you get the picture. Speaking to an NPC inside our main hub grants us the Fief or Fife key, whichever one it is. We can now go back close to where the stamina regen ring was and use it to open up the ice region. In here, we can get another charge for our lantern, which I kind of wanted for the longer dungeons. But of course, a guardian stands in our way. They really do love making you pop these eyes open so you can deal damage at all. Once that's done, several frost wolves need to be dealt with. The ice region is something you typically do later in the game, as it's much more challenging than we're ready for right now. Not a major problem for such a boss, as I noticed he was staggering from every individual bolt I sent out. Not even sure exactly how this works, because during a few attacks, bosses just don't care about you. Then other times, their axe swings will stop altogether, making it seem as if they can't fight at all. We managed to mess up a riposte opportunity, which kinda sucked, though Bleed dealt some nasty damage here. Ignore me blowing up to the ice AoEs, and now we snatch up a chisel for our lantern. With an additional eye slot, I didn't have much that mattered. However, this will be incredibly important later on. The blacksmith sold me a Black Feather Ranger ring, which increases crossbow damage. In the fire area, I managed to snag a cultist flail for the extra fire damage. One of the cooler modifiers you can put on your game is to have all items be picked up at the level of your current weapon, letting you use anything you pick up if your stats are right for it. We really enjoyed this, as it opens up what you can use for each run. Spurned Progeny is a gigantic fire monster with a hand in his mouth for some reason. The perfect place for my crossbow to finally shine. Just fire away as he's not focused on me, and there we go. Phase 1 is down already. Now with lava all over the ground, we move upstairs to safety. Darn it, now we can't deal any damage. Oh wait, never mind. Usually the idea is to attack his hands each time he slams down onto the platform, but we've got way more attack opportunities than that, for once. Hide behind walls each time he summons the fire nuke to survive instant death. I had found some holy bolts early on near where you find the blacksmith, though to be honest they seem very underwhelming. Physicals seem to perform better in every single fight. Not sure what's up with that. The next area houses a second rune tablet inside the fireplace here. Time to make our way to one of the longest mines of all time. We pick up the Edict's Aim crossbow, which is a crazy cool item for here in a second. The little gremlin girl down here is super helpful, as she sells a crossbowman's ring. Instead of every bolt costing me 2 points per shot, it now only costs me 1. Way more ammo means way more range damage. Better yet, my brother also bought the ring and dropped it to me. Turns out rings can stack in Lords of the Fallen, which will be great for more costly bolts. So anyway, what's so cool about my new crossbow? Well, the skin stealer can tell you that this thing reloads fast. Where the old crossbow looked like someone really loading a crossbow, this thing has auto loading. You literally fire again in under half a second. I was so surprised by this that I might have forgotten to dodge a time or two. Still, just look at this thing. I mean, better arrows, instant damage, and another ring were huge upgrades all in the same area. Jumping down some Umbral platforms, we can now face off against the Reapers. Dark wraiths that hunt you down anytime you're in Umbral. Except a boss version, so a tad stronger, of course. He dodges bolts, and apparently also jumps off the edge to delete his entire HP bar by himself. Never seen that one before. Instead, we're gonna face 2 wraiths for a duo fight. I dealt with one, my brother dealt with the other. A very spinny fight as they twirl around you. Funnily enough, this build is so powerful, not just from damage, of course, but also since getting more ammo is the same stat that gives you tons of HP. So taking hits really isn't a big deal. Dang, bro, this new crossbow is so much better. I cannot express that enough. After finding the secret sewer's entrance and traversing the dark depths below, we encounter Harrower Dervla, an Umbral knight who gets powered up by a second opponent at the top. She, kept getting me with the sword slam. Nothing I could say to make up for that, unfortunately, as I was being far too spammy with the bolts. Can you blame me, though? I mean, this boss is getting melted down before she can correctly phase transition. Oh, look at that. Turns out she has a crossbow of her own. That didn't help her much since I finally learned how to dodge, but of course, this is a major boss, boss, so the second opponent combines with this knight, becoming more powerful than ever. Wither bolts are another option that can be found in this dungeon as you make your way down. They seem to do well against the boss, though again I think regular ones are better in most cases. As a boss fight, this is an incredible experience. You don't really need to come down here as it's more out of the way. Fight past a horde of monsters and old miners to find a forgotten being of cursed power. She's supposed to be one of the most important bosses for one of the game's endings, so naturally I turned her into a good opponent for target practice. I can't imagine it gets any better than this, he says, with no sarcasm in his voice whatsoever. With this boss's Umbral memory extracted, we could speak with an entity at the hub area and purchase Harrower Dervla's crossbow. Upgrading it to +6, this thing is a one-of-a-kind for sure. Yes, sadly, we do lose the instant reload, which was terrific to say the least. Instead, we now fire 3 bolts at a time. That's right, folks, we now have a triple-shot crossbow, the Avalon, but it doesn't suck. Boy, does she chew through ammo, but it is a triple crossbow. You have to use it, because you just do, you know? Newfound power should give us the edge we need for the good old ice region. This boss is more of a joke under normal circumstances, as it's supposed to be a gank encounter. Well, as it turns out, this weapon is very, very strong. Who in their right mind could have possibly guessed that? I truly wonder. My brother's choice of weapon, the ice talons, are hidden on some rooftops closer to the end of this icy mountain, leading us up toward Hollow Crow. Get ready, boys, we've got ourselves a gimmick fight. Waves of enemies are sent at you, while a ghostly woman hovers around in the icy fog. Your goal is to soul flay her with the lantern and then attack the soul. Usually, it is a good idea to clear out enemies first, making this as safe as can be. All the while, ice shards erupt from the ground, mostly in spots you won't really get hit by too much. Once a critical attack is dealt, you transition into a new phase. Dodge a plethora of ice attacks from the large crow who can't be attacked. Then some new enemies spawn in, and you repeat the cycle at least 3 times. Again, I was upping health and stamina mostly so that my bolts were easy to use. This makes a fight based around lasting the time somewhat less of a challenge. Not too big of a deal though. It's a good design that's still engaging. Unfortunately, it isn't super oriented for the crossbow, which I did immediately notice. Be sure not to interact with the strange beam here and instead open up a chest with weapon upgrade materials. Oh hey look, the other spot we were meant to fight the Light Reaper in. Too bad for him, he's already dead. Up an elevator we go, opening up to Upper Kalroth, a significant drop being 1 health regen ring, which I promptly dropped to my brother, giving him 2 for obviously some nice bonuses. Nothing major to do here since there's just another sky beam we want to kind of ignore. Instead, we collect the Pilgrim key left for us in the hub area, which opens up a door directly after the flail boss earlier on in the game. Backtracking. I've never seen this mechanic before. The fire flail wasn't exactly as good as I thought it was gonna be, although my bleed one felt perfect, so no major loss. Sacred Resonance hides away among his group of cronies. He's a large bell-headed fellow who can create shockwaves by hitting his hammer on the bell. Not exactly good for the brain, and not really good for our health either. A little difficult to attack when enemies love hiding away from me, or more like Roki was pummeling him into a corner, so I digress. Maxing out the triple crossbow at +10, it's time we get serious and hunt down new bolts. Deep inside the confines of Holy Warrior territory, we find a table on which lie twisted bolts. Even with double reducing cost rings on, these still use up 2 ammo or 6 at a time with this crossbow. The trade-out is that they explode on contact with twisted holy thorns. Indeed, I believe these are worth the wait. Time to see how they fare in an actual fight. 2 abiding defenders, relatively easy to split up in co-op. If it wasn't apparent enough to the viewer, this build has finally come together. Yes, each bolt deals holy instead of physical, though it seems they deal better damage overall. Completely mopping the floor with a holy-based boss. Next opponent, please, if you will. The chest here contains Flail of Wisdom, which I used even though it means we lose our bleed. Scaling in agility and strength, it sounded more promising to me. At Tower of Penance, we can shoot down a new poison enemy variant. Without breaking his extra defense, there wasn't much of a battle to be seen here. These guys are based around poison and don't have much in the way of ranged attacks. They also tend to come back to life at least once, which, if I'm being honest, did not help him out in any significant way. The final runed tablet can be acquired while scaling down this illustrious tower. Hidden away at the bottom is a holy leader turned evil. While our damage may have skyrocketed through the roof, the stagger seems relatively unchanged. Most often it felt like my brother was doing all the stability damage, while my job was to just get rid of health. This largely has to do with him parrying. Parries destroy boss stability bars, making for super easy criticals. Moving on to phase 2, as the Holy Knight shows his true self. No longer is he holy based, but absorbed with the fire of a deer. This is the part of the game that should, in theory, be getting harder, although that isn't quite what's happening. Cool boss, I think, since he didn't even get to do anything. Runes don't exactly get placed on crossbows, so there's no way to add extra stats to them, unless you use a shield in your offhand to gain extra ammunition and a second rune for extra ammunition. Not half bad of a workaround, if I do say so myself. The Holy Knight moves on up to our next destination. I like the idea of an extra ammunition ring, but what I have now is too useful to pass up. With ammunition about as large as my health bar at this point, it's not looking good for a holy mage. I see. Teleportation. Well, that isn't annoying or anything. Oh, you say I have 65 large ammunition pouches to chew through. Fair enough, that makes it even easier to nuke bosses across the map. Who the heck designed these bolts, man? They're absolutely wild. Back at that spot where we first rescued the blacksmith is a door opened up by the Pilgrim Key. Here, you can equip Warrior's Claw Amulet, increasing physical damage and defense. I didn't really need it since I was using holy bolts, but with health so high, it helped my flail. At least I think it did. The Rune of a Deer is something we need to move forward to. The Holy Knights were set here to guard it with their lives. However, they might have possibly been corrupted by it. Not a good look for the Holy Clan, to be honest. A Huntress attempts to stop our acquisition of said item. She failed. I have to once again bring up the fact that co-op in this game is not challenging in the least. Solo, several of these bosses can give you a bit of a challenge, but together, you and your buddy don't really give opponents any chances to move, let alone actually defeat you. Areas are the hard parts, surprisingly. Judge Cleric, head of the corrupted faction, is next up on the chopping block. She's sort of set up as the final boss of Lords of the Fallen, even though she really isn't the final boss. More like the last holy leader you need to take down. With her massive holy magic, she can overwhelm you quickly, though I just now learned that without lock-on, my bolts are impossible to miss, and didn't flick my screen around as much. Quickly moving into phase 2, she turns into her fire form. To be fair, she did deal some damage to me and my brother. Not really enough to matter, I'm afraid, but still, gotta give her the points. Once again, do not interact with the beacon placed here. Instead, we go back up to Upper Kalroth, where the Light Reaper should attack us. But then again, he died a while ago. Now, what we wanted to do was fight an NPC here, although for some reason he wasn't appearing. Turns out you need to speak with him one last time in a small room on the side of your main hub area. Finally, he's gonna jump down to try and take your lantern. Yes, what a great idea. Take the lantern from a guy who killed several bosses you clearly couldn't. Genius, bud. Just genius. Safe to say this arena is pretty trash though. With no room to move around, you can't quite back up to be a proper archer. Luckily, my explosions back him off repeatedly, so there's nothing he can do anyway. Though it was pretty fun to watch my brother get riposted, as I could do nothing to stop it. Am I a good partner for such an adventure? Possibly not. The Iron Wayfarer now blocks our way to a deer's tomb of sorts. He wields a large umbral hammer and can cast white magic which blows up anything near him. This guy is one of the first NPCs you interact with, as you find him all throughout the game. Supposedly, this entire catastrophe is his fault, as he was meant to guard the Rune of a Deer we now carry. Yet instead, he gave it to the cleric, who then got corrupted. Now, his goal is to stop us from freeing a deer, as far as I'm aware. Another somewhat crappy arena, as with no width whatsoever, you have to walk into him, or really that's about it. Possibly he could have got me if this was a 1v1 engagement, but after all, this is co-op. All's fair in Gank Squad territory as far as I'm concerned. The Rune of a Deer is now used to open up a way forward, into a castle-y fortress long forgotten by time. Hidden in a corner up by one of the vestige checkpoints, we can find explosive bolts. They cost 4 just like the holy bolts, but explode into fire blasts instead of holy. Both deal the same amount of damage, as far as I could tell. You need to decide, is this enemy weak to holy or weak to fire? For me, holy performed way better overall, and I got those way sooner too. But a different kind of explosion was fun to have, for sure. After another 30 minutes of long dungeon crawling, we reach the final boss door. But before entering, it's super important to stop off at the side and collect the Umbral Eye of Lydia the Numb Witch. When slotted in the main socket, this eye allows you to fire without any bolts whatsoever. It will instead turn your health into wither, so after we run out of ammo, we still can use the crossbow at the cost of some health. What's super insane about this new eye is any damage you deal restores withered health. Since the explosions hit so hard, they often fully restore any withered health you get from not having bolts, meaning we have infinite ammo as long as we hit the enemy. Easy enough to do, as our target is quite the large fellow. Too bad it takes nearly 100% of this game to get the eyeball. Though pouches are plentiful enough, so do you really need the eyeball that badly anyway? While this is one of the few legitimate bosses who can take you down, it never came to that. Not for a lack of trying, as becoming a ranged madman had gotten me maybe too used to not having to dodge. Finally reaching Adir, the Rogar Master, our work is not yet done. He powers up the Rune of Adir, sending us out on one last mission. It is now our job to retrace back each individual sky beacon we left alone in the past. The Ice Regions is protected by Holy Guardsmen. Beacon 1 has been empowered. The Swamp holds archers and spearmen in place to block our way forward. Call it cheesy if you will, I call fighting ranged with ranged completely fair. Beacon number 2 has been empowered. Atop the high tower already protected in the past, we can charge up a third beam. Then after the final holy boss is our next stop, although this one is defended the most readily. Knights wielding holy swords and a laser mage fall over like wet paper. Beacon number 4 has been enraged. Oh yeah, I forgot there's a 5th one, isn't there? This one's behind Light Reaper's final boss arena where there isn't much to begin with. With the 5th beacon charged, we head back to where the holy boss's body now rests. Entering the cleric's mind, we use the empowered Rune of Adir to infect her soul with Adir's very essence. She now ceases to exist, as Adir walks among the mortal plane once again. It is now time for the demons to take over, with me as Adir's right-hand man, the Infernal Champion. And there you have 100% of Lords of the Fallen leading up to the Inferno ending. This is one of the good endings where you become the bad guy, because at least you get to be a leader and you gain power. There are 2 other endings to this game that me and my brother are going to try to explore on separate characters. Some bosses can't even be fought unless you complete those endings, as well as there being some really hidden quests. Anything we missed in this full run, we're going to try and cover in those when I get around to it. One thing we did cover in my brother's world was the Bucket Man quest. This has you summon a Bucket Man to aid you in lesser fights. Do the full quests and you gain his golden knuckles, which have super cool AoE abilities, like explosions of wood and stuff like that. Sadly, it seems as if their damage is horrific for such a hidden weapon, but we did check them out at least. Outside of that, this run has officially come to an end. I absolutely love the crossbow weapon type, as it has fun options and deals great damage. Would highly recommend giving them a shot if you feel so inclined. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.